Okay, so I've been around the business of data warehousing and business intelligence for a long time. In fact, some people know me as the unrecognized grandfather of data warehousing. There are other people who just call me the old curmudgeon of business intelligence. But today I want to take a slightly different role. You know the story of the emperor's new clothes? Anybody know the story of? Yes. So I'm not the emperor without the clothes, so there's going to be no undressing on the stage here. Thanks, Max. Now you got it. Okay. So I am going to take the role of the small boy who said to the emperor, "Hey, you ain't got any clothes." So in some sense, I'm basically saying that, the people who've been up here until now are naked. So think about that while I run through some of the myths of data-driven business. But first of all, what do I want to say? What is data-driven business? It's a new phrase. It's not quite as sexy as data lakes yet, but I think it will be. And data-driven business is basically saying that all of the data that we get, all of the data we can get, gets to be part of what we do in business. Whether it's coming from the social media of Facebook and Twitter, whether it's coming from the point of sale systems, and remember the point of sale systems were in the old days the very first sets of information that we started mining and taking information out of and turning it into insights. But it's got to do with data coming from RFIDs and tags, data coming from sensors on our wrists, on Fitbits and Jawbones. It's smart televisions, it's interconnected motor vehicles, it's sensors in our houses, it's refrigerators that talk to the internet. Are you aware that this year, just this year, the first refrigerator has been hacked? What are they looking for? I tell you, there's nothing interesting in my refrigerator. Let's talk about the myths. So the first myth that I want to talk about is that data-driven business leads to improved information. Now, I was going to have a go at Martin, because Martin was up here talking about the data lake earlier. And basically, he spoiled my presentation by telling us that not everything in the data lake is perfect. And I want to just re-echo that before I move on. This is a picture of a data lake. You know the idea. You pour all of the data into a large hole in the ground. It somehow magically gets purified, and it's nice and beautiful. You let your users play in it. They drink of it. They do whatever it is they need to do, and they have great fun, as you can see. And it is into this data lake that our data scientists dive. So elegant, so sophisticated. Well, I don't believe that for a moment. That's not the way it works. This is what a data lake looks like. Most times. Because those of us who've been around in business intelligence for a long time know just how hard it is to make a data lake clean and pure and fit for consumption. It is really tough work. So unless your data scientists look a bit like this guy, I'm not sure that you're going to succeed. Governance, from an IT point of view, the governance of data and the governance of information is so vital if you're going to make a data lake or a data infrastructure work. So that's the first myth busted, as they say. It is not going to give you improved information with so little ease. Myth number 2, data-driven leads to exceptional decision-making. Well, if you were to talk to the business schools and you talk to the economists, you'll hear about rational choice theory. Rational choice theory, as you probably know, since there's a lot of data scientists here, rational choice theory says that we have to have a look at all of the different pros and cons. We think about all of the different possibilities. We have to calculate or guess the utility of each one of those options, and then we multiply that by the probability, and we come up with a mathematical formula which enables us to do things like choose whom we're going to marry. Not really. Do we really work like that? I don't think so. How many times have you gone to your manager with a set of data that absolutely proved your point, and your manager said, please go back and do that again. That's not the answer I wanted. Marketers and advertisers know perfectly well that we don't make rational decisions. This is a politically incorrect ad from the 1960s. But they're playing with your emotions. It's unfortunately true that many of us make very poor decisions under the influence of alcohol, when we're tired or when we're hungry. And if you happen to be in prison and you go before a parole board, recent study has shown that if your case comes before the parole board just before lunch or just before the end of the day, you're much less likely to get your parole. Because they're tired, they're hungry, and they've heard a lot of bad news already. And if there's any series that proves that decision-making is not about data, but is more about intention, I think it's House of Cards, right? This is the way politics works, red in tooth and nail. So it's not all about the information, it's not all about data, it's actually about the human factors that must be taken into account. The emotions, the feelings, the full body, if you like, of how it is that we are as humans, as spiritual, emotional, physical beings, not just living in our data heads. So human factors are, in reality, at the heart of exceptional decision-making. Let's talk about myth number 3. Data-driven business is about creating better business, better behavior, better whatever. And you've heard a lot of stories about this morning and this afternoon already, about how data is going to make business so much better. And yes, of course, it does help. There are lots of things that you can do with data that you could never do before. You can, for example, take the information, the logistics information from your fleet. You can compare it with the traffic patterns, you can use the weather input, you can bring it all together and you can improve your logistics, you can even make sure that your drivers are doing their job properly, you can plan the maintenance, lots of things that you couldn't do before. In the medical world, the ability that you will have with these medical sensors attached to people at risk, old people or people who are ill, will allow you to deliver medical care in a way that you've never been able to do before. And there are lots and lots of good business stories and lots of good opportunities that come from data-driven. Yes, absolutely. And this morning, I believe, Eric talked about one of the opportunities in terms of the predictive analytics. Predictive analytics, where he told us about Target, who were able to drive much more business from their marketing. But there's another side to that story. Some of you may have heard this before. So Target had a very interesting idea. They thought, if we know if women are pregnant in the first trimester of their pregnancy, we have the opportunity to sell them more things when their baby arrives. We can send out more customized catalogs to a targeted audience of women whom we know are pregnant. So they set about looking at purchasing patterns. Out of the purchasing patterns, they were indeed able to distinguish which women were pregnant. Sent out the customized catalogs, and well, you can imagine what might have happened. Somewhere out in the Midwest, there was an irate customer who called in to one of the stores and said, are you trying to promote promiscuity among my family? Why is my daughter getting such a catalog with all of this baby stuff in it? He had to go back a couple of weeks later and apologize. It appears, he said, that there were activities going on under my roof that I wasn't aware of. Privacy is so key to what goes on here. Do you think privacy was being invaded there? Yes, I think the answer is yes. What did Target do when they were told that this was a problem? They changed the catalog. So they distributed the baby goods among the lawnmowers and the chainsaws and whatever, but you still got, if you were targeted, if I may use the word, as pregnant, you still got an additional dose of baby gear. So, not so good. Here's another interesting one from the US. This mailing campaign based on the data which is collected all over the internet, from the demographics, from all of the behaviors, from the clicks and from the various things that people put through the internet. So they got to understand that this gentleman, Mike C.'s daughter was killed in a car crash. Not sure why that should go onto a mailing from Office Max. Obviously some programming error. But really, should it even have been correlated in there in the first place? The programs that go on in the US these days, in terms of collecting information and building mailing lists, they are literally invading people's privacy and building lists of rape victims, incest victims, so that you can target market them. This is not right, in my view. So, not too good. Privacy must be at the core of good business behavior. And let me give you just one more example. This is a patent which was put in by Verizon a couple of years ago. You can see on the left the idea. There's a set-top box. The set-top box monitors what's going on in the living room. It's called Ambient Actions. And you can see there's a little program, a little algorithm that goes with this, present some media, detect the ambient action, identify an advertisement, and present the identified advertisement in the next break. So make up your story. Here's some ambient action going on the sofa. And here's a relevant advertisement. Are you really keen? Are you really keen that you should be target marketed this way? It's happening in the stores with your smartphones. It's happening in your homes now in the future. So, a bit worrying. Finally, Anthony earlier talked about some of this, that the way that data is growing, the way that technology is growing, the way that the machines and the automation is going, that the world will be a different place, is what he said. And he's absolutely right. And there are many books out there that you can read that talk about how wonderful this world is going to be. But you know what? And Anthony actually said this in passing, but he didn't quite bring it out so obviously. He said, products are getting so cheap, whether they're based on data, whether they're based on better technology, whether they're based on the printing mechanism, they're getting so cheap that they're almost have no cost. So how do you get to produce products that have no cost? You basically make sure that you're employing nobody to build them. Because one of the biggest costs of building products today and in the industrial age is labor. And not only is it a cost, but these people, they get pregnant, they get tired, they want holidays. Far better if you can do it with technology. So what we're seeing is a shift of the money that people invest, a shift of investment from people to capital. This is a bit worrying if you're a young person out in the audience. Where are the jobs going to come from? The traditional answer from the economists is that some new waves of jobs will magically appear. But I'm beginning to think that our technology is getting so good, is getting so perfect, is getting so powerful that I can't quite imagine where those new jobs are going to come from. If you can, please tell me, because I've asked a number of people, including the chief economist of IBM, and I've still not got a good answer. So in some sense, you might say that data-driven business may become a world economic destroyer. Think about it. You're the people who are designing the new world, using the data to build new systems, new approaches. So I want to just ask you to take some points away, some thinking points. First of all, remember data governance. Data never comes clean, and it's going to come dirtier and dirtier day by day as we join all of this stuff together that we don't know who built it and we don't know where it came from. So you've got to do the data governance. Include in your thinking the fact that people are not entirely rational, if indeed they're rational at all. Include the human and social psyche. Respect and nurture privacy. Most of the business that you see going on based on social media, on advertising and so on, is about an invasion of privacy. And I suggest to you, respectfully, that if you lose privacy, and we are losing it, you will also lose democracy. Finally, consider the economic consequences of what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, if there is no jobs, if there is nobody to buy the stuff, there's no point in making it. So, I'd like to wrap up. Thank you for being with me for the last 15 minutes. I will be outside afterwards and for the rest of the day. If you want to have a look at my book, come along and talk to me and see if I'm really as depressive as you think I am. That might be a good idea. And just to go back to the story of the little boy and the emperor, just note that in none of the stories does it tell what happened to the little boy. Maybe he got his tongue cut out by the emperor's henchmen. Please don't do the same to me. Thank you very much.